Bueno, pues hoy tenemos el privilegio aquí en Calle 11 de tener a Matt Salinger con nosotros, hijo de J.D. Salinger, recordará usted el guardián en el centeno, y un actor, Matt Salinger, y al mismo tiempo editor de la obra de su padre. Welcome. Thank you very much, Matt, for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You have a kind of double personality. On the one hand, you're an actor, and on the other, you are an editor. So how these two lives have been together all along in your life?
It was a forced marriage.
Okay.
I hadn't planned
What
on
do you prefer? So?
Well, I love acting. I hate the business of it, but I love the craft. I love acting is enormously challenging and fun and interesting. And I wouldn't say I'm an editor. That's a little grand for the next stage of what I've been doing will probably involve a lot of editing. But so far, it's been, I've just been transcribing.
Transcribing?
So
written?
Yeah, well, my father wrote for 50 years and didn't publish. So there's a lot of handwritten pages, a lot of typewritten pages, but on old manual typewriters that can't be scanned, digitally scanned, and they just don't have the technology yet to do what.
We need to talk why all this material is in your hands. I had to say that, the Catcher on the Rye was published in 1951, if I'm not wrong. And after that, your father decided to not be seen publicly, but he didn't stop writing. Why did he decide to do that?
Well, he published 3 more books after Catcher. 9 stories, 9 short stories, which is a great thing to read for your readers out there who maybe don't have the attention spans for a novel. I've been reading about how nobody reads books anymore, and college professors are decrying. I know, it seems pretty full. It seems pretty good. There was just an article in The Atlantic, though, this month about how students are afraid of
reading.
Afraid. I mean, literally fearful. Anyway.
The sales of books in this feria grew 17% among the young people.
Wow.
It's difficult to explain what is really going on. But well,
yeah.
we're talking about GD.
My father loved, a little bit like me, I can't compare myself to him in many ways at all, but he loved writing. He didn't like the business of it either.
He did like the crafting.
He didn't like the attention. Well, fortunately and unfortunately for him, his first book, made him kind of famous. So
60 million copies.
Close to 90 now.
Close to 90 million.
Yeah. It was 70 when he died in 2010, and anyway, yeah, close.
So fame came very early in his life.
It did, and it was unwanted. He was a very.
What he didn't like? Interviews, talk about everything, being a public person.
No, none of it.
Nothing of it.
He didn't like any kind of attention like that, and he didn't think he was trying his best to eliminate his ego for sort of spiritual reasons. He was very interested in Eastern religion, non-dualist Advaita Vedanta, and part of that is, all this is kind of an illusion. It's no more real than our dreams or our imaginations. And he believed that. So anything that would have him believe, no, this is real, you are famous, let me give you some money, let me give you some, he would run the other way.
You were born at that time. You were born in 1960.
Yeah.
And when did he decide just to get out from the public eye?
The last thing he published professionally was a long short story or a short novella in the New Yorker called Hapworth 16. That was, I think, 1965.
So you were 5.
Might have been 66. I'm not sure, but yeah.
When did you realize your father was famous but not famous? A celebrity, but a hidden celebrity.
Well, pretty early, I guess, I knew that he was different than other fathers of kids in my class at school. And
Different as a public personality or as a private personality?
both, you know, he went to work in his back room where his typewriter was. He didn't go to an office or to a dealership or to a farm. I grew up in a very rural community, so there were a lot of farmers. There were, you know, reporters who would come by the house occasionally and knock on the door, and I knew that was a little odd, and I knew that it would upset him when it happened. So it became a sort of game of dodging them.
I read you were saying that inside the house, he was funny and his humor with you.
Absolutely.
And outside, he was another person.
Well, not so much. I mean, in the public perception,
Okay.
certainly the way he was written about was as a freakish misanthrope. And he wasn't. He had lots of friends. He went out to dinner. You know, people came up from New York to visit. He had a very active correspondence, letter writing, and he'd come to my baseball games or ski races or whatever. He was, for all the fame and the myth that was built up around him, without any of his involvement in it, he was pretty normal. Well,
he's a man of his generation who isn't, but he went to the war.
Yes.
He saw terrible things. He liberated prisoners. He went to prison camps. How that affected his personality, his identity, his writing, his character as a writer?
well, he said to me more than once, because every article about him talks about how he was profoundly affected by the war. And I'm not sure that he wasn't, but he denied it to me.
He didn't accept it.
He didn't accept that. He said what the war did is it reinforced and solidified all these suspicions that I'd had my whole life about human nature.
Okay.
That weren't.
It was not a surprise.
It was
It
not a
fell
surprise.
out of
None
the
of it.
course.
And when, forgive me for bringing up politics, but you know, when our newly elected president was first elected, I called my sister, and we hadn't been speaking for a long time. But I needed to speak to him because the only person that I knew that wouldn't have been surprised in the least was my father.
Of these votes.
Of Trump winning was my father, because he'd seen everything in what humans are capable of, and she let out a shriek on the phone. And I know, I've been thinking the same thing. Yeah.
You have a big responsibility because he didn't stop writing, or he did stop publishing, and now you're not in the point of editing his work, but you are working on his work.
Yes.
And you promise that maybe in the next years we want to know all these stories that he wrote. Now you are the only, almost the only guy that knows. Something that was given to you, or is something that you took for yourself?
Oh no. He gave it to me with very specific, rather humorous directions.
Will you tell the story how it was done?
Well, I knew there was all this material, and I haven't said anywhere that it is individual books. You know, it's a lot of written material.
Letters, stories, essays.
A lot of, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and probably more than 1,000 pages of written notes, dialogue, ideas, some things longer than others. But I don't want to say much about what it is because I don't want to affect the reader's expectations. I want them to discover it.
What it is for you?
For me,
Visiting your father. Because you are talking to your father daily. It's not something that most of us can do.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Alive, I mean.
Yeah, well, it's kept him alive very much for me, and I do have a dialogue with him, and I'm really grateful for that because he was a tremendously funny and intelligent man, and a word that he didn't like using because he didn't see much wisdom in the world at all, but he really strove for wisdom and read everything his entire life. I mean, he was the most
He was
widely,
dedicated reader.
yeah, really kind of a polymath in a way. I mean, yeah, read everything and had deep knowledge in a lot of different areas. So that's been great, and I continue to learn as I read what he wrote, and when it's published, other readers will too. What he said to me is because I asked him several times. I said, you know, if you want to finish something in novel form, you know, I would never presume to do that for you. So please
Do it before, yeah. I don't want to charge with that. I mean,
And he said, math, you know, it's overrated. You know, I'm very happy with the 4 works that I've published. And I would say to you, the readers out there that are waiting for something new, most of you have only read Catcher in the Rye. There are 3 other books where there's a lot of, you know, hidden treasure and gold. And
which one is your favorite?
Franny and Zooey. Yeah, definitely.
Why the Catcher in the Rye is more?
It's more easily accessible to a reader, and very young. You know, I read it when I was 12. I don't know how old. Yeah, I mean, you can read it when you're 12 or when you're, you know, 89. You know, and your experience will be a little bit different, but the lessons are there, the humor's there.
This has been a surprise.
During this interview, is this spiritual thing of your father? You were saying he was not religious, or he was religious?
Well,
Which form he was religious?
What do you mean by religious?
A structured way of.
No. No.
It was spiritual.
Spiritual, yeah, and he was attracted to mysticism in really all religions, in Jewish mysticism, Catholic mysticism, but Zen, Tao.
Okay.
He had
As a human wisdom, interpreted as a human wisdom, this
Religious practice or?
Well, hoping to transcend what is human and enter another realm of more spirituality. And he writes about it in some of his books, both in Franny and Zooey and in Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenter and Seymour. Seymour was their resident mystic in the Glass family. And yeah, he was like one of the Glass siblings in a way.
Well, we are expecting, and thank you very much for this funny, humble talk with you. I really love talking to you, having this conversation, and see you next time, maybe here in Guadalajara.
Okay.
With the other books.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricardo.